Hey, everybody. Welcome back to another episode. Today we have Laura Petkunaite. That is a beautiful last name. And where's that from?
It's from Lithuania.
Lithuania. Fantastic. When's the last time you were back in Lithuania?
It was July, like last July. I'm aiming to get there at least once a year, so.
Yeah, I've never had the pleasure of going, but I would love to hear a little bit about it today.
Course.
So I'm very excited to have you here today. We were just talking about how you might be the most educated person that I've ever had on the podcast. So I'm excited to dive into that. I know we got connected through a waste spell, and he was an excellent guest, taught me so much about my gut biome and just so much about how my body functions. I'm actually going to be doing a regime with him. So we're going to dive into my gut biome so we can figure out what's going there. And I just want to say thank you so much for being here.
Of course, it's my pleasure. Thank you so much for having me.
Okay, so for those of you that don't know Laura, I'm going to give you a little bit of background on Laura. So Laura, she likes to focus on several different specialties. She works in frequency medicine, quantum medicine, and whole body healing. In her practice, she uses a blend of Western and Eastern medicine, psychology, and the realm of quantum physics to help her clients and those that come to her with ailments. So some of her clients might come to her with perfect lab work, but they're still not feeling that perfect. And a lot of them have chronic symptoms, they have chronic diseases, and they have a lot of issues. Things like blood work and things like MRIs and CT scans, they will show you what she likes to call the fourth stage of symptoms. And there's 3 stages which people are not seeing before the 4th stage. So with those types of tests, they're only really treating the symptom. They're not treating the root causes, what we had discussed before. She believes that the only way to make real change is through the physics of the body. The body will produce the same outcome over and over again if you don't change the physics. Her practice is exactly for people with chronic or mysterious diseases, and she helps them figure out the reason for their symptoms. She uses the combination of Western and Eastern medicine, quantum physics, and psychology to help these clients. Now, Laura, like I said before, she's one of the most educated people I've ever met. She has 3 bachelor's degrees, 2 master's degrees, a doctorate, and she is finishing up her PhD. For somebody who has a higher education, I have a Juris Doctorate, right, being an attorney, I have so much respect for you. That is no easy feat, and you've dedicated most of your life. Do you mind me asking your age? Sorry, if you don't, you also don't have to ask.
I get this question so often. Like every time when people hear like what I do in life, they're like, "How old are you?" It kind of does not match with the way you look like. How old do you think I am?
I would say like early 30s. Yeah, and
you're right out almost there. Yeah,
almost there. Yeah, the reason I bring it up is just because I understand how much time it takes to go to school for all these educations. Yeah, so you must have been in school most of your life, and
absolutely.
Yeah, and so
I had no break since high school.
Yeah, that's amazing. So her degrees, the degrees that she has range in specialties from Western medicine, as we discussed, specifically rehab in oncology and psychiatry fields, holistic health and quantum physics, science, natural and integrative medicine, and psychology. Yeah.
Yes.
Cool. Fantastic. So enough with the intros. So, I mean, when you were younger and you were a kid, did you think that you were going to spend so much time in school, or how did this happen where you were just like, I'm just going to go to this and go to that and go to this, and now here you are with your PhD in psychology now. Is that correct?
My PhD is in integrative medicine.
Medicine.
Yeah, I'm finishing up my PhD. Like I actually have to submit it like next month. So I'm almost there.
Okay.
Yeah, my whole life has been dedicated to education and studying. And I love to teach. I love to learn. It's all in between.
Yeah.
So when I was a kid, I had no idea that I'm going to go and just study my whole life. So basically, I wanted to be a teacher because my mom was a teacher. Of course, we all have this kind of, example.
Yeah.
So my mom is a teacher, and I always wanted to be a teacher. I wanted to teach geography or biology. But then I was so good at math and all these like science. And I'm like, you know what? I think probably I want to do some chemistry related studies. And then I noticed I'm going to miss like human contact. So that's why I decided to go to medical school. And I'm like, okay, that's a perfect mix of being in contact with human, but there's a perfect mix of science behind that. So I went there and I was extremely skeptical about all the other modalities. And I thought that, only Western medicine, only pills, surgeries can actually help for people.
Yeah.
But yeah, life gives you an experience, and I got extremely sick when I was working in the hospital, like finishing up my studies. I got extremely sick to a variety of different symptoms, and no one from Western medicine were able to help me. Like none of those people in all the fanciest hospitals all across the Europe were able to figure out what's happening and what to do with me. So my boyfriend, who is my husband at this time, he's like, you know what? You should try some alternative or different types of medicine. Of course, my reaction was like, dude, don't waste my time. I don't believe in that.
Yeah.
But I'm like, okay, I'm going to do this for you almost.
Yeah. Why do you say that? Why at that time did you feel like you don't believe in it? Just because of the schooling that you'd received?
Absolutely. It
Got
was full on conditioning that you are so zoomed in one thing that you cannot see the whole reality,
whole
right?
picture,
Like
yeah.
you are so into something that you just can't zoom out and see the full picture. So yeah, that was full on conditioning and my own, that was a decision to dive fully into the human body from the chemical perspective. So yeah, and I decided to give it a shot for like functional alternative medicine fields. And that was the only thing that helped me for my health.
Okay.
So then I decided, you know what? I want to do this for people. I want to start learning that. And that's when I noticed that, well, you can't do that if you know only one field.
Yeah.
So that's why I started to go into the all Eastern natural medicine philosophies. Then I thought like, oh my God, now I can help someone. Like I know some part of Western, which means I know anatomy, I know physiology, I know chemistry. Now I know Eastern, like maybe now I can help someone.
Yeah.
But then I decided, you know what? You have to understand what's happening in their mind. So that's why I studied in London. I studied psychology. Then I thought like, okay, now I can heal someone. But once I got into the quantum physics realm, I'm like, oh my God, I don't know nothing at all. Like I have no idea what I'm doing.
Yeah.
So that's why this whole exploration started, because the more you dive into that, the more you see that it's a rabbit hole. And you have to see where you want to dive into that. So it's been a mix of all of it. And sometimes I believe that it's necessary for me to actually fully see someone where they are, because it all has a time, space, and place to be used, and just beautiful game in all between these things that I know at this moment.
Yeah, I mean, if there's one thing I've learned in life is the more you educate yourself, the more you realize how little you know about the universe.
Of course.
And I think that's why they say Socrates was the most intelligent, because he used to say, I know nothing. And
Exactly.
so hearing you go down your journey, it's this understanding that there's always going to be more to learn, and seeing that there's different perspectives. But I think also, too, that a lot of people that have the educations in the backgrounds that you do, talking about Western medicine, I think a lot of them treat the symptoms, but they don't treat the whole person. And the whole person can be a combination of the trauma that they've suffered. It can be life habits that they consistently do because of the traumas that they've suffered, different psychological aspects that make them dissociate or keep doing the same thing over and over, that allow them to act in the same way, which is causing the chronic symptom. But also, I believe that the system that we are in now, the doctors are, I love doctors. I work with them all the time, being in my field. I have so much respect for them. They're doing the best they can with the limited amount of time, and also, in my opinion, the limited amount of response that they receive from the clients themselves. They're going in there, and the clients, a lot of time, they don't want to hear that they're overweight, they're not taking care of themselves, they're chronically depressed, they're going through a divorce. They just want the short-term solution. They want the sugar high. You know what I mean? They're looking for the quick fix. So I love hearing about people like you that are healers, that are trying to take a whole approach to the situation, because that's really what it is. It requires a full approach, especially to something that is chronic, because chronic problems, in my experience, they're not something that stems from a quick solution. There's something that requires a lot of deep work, and it requires a lot of healing from the individual. And a lot of times it's them being in disease, right? And the Latin root of disease means they're in dis-ease, which is leading to disease. And so I have a lot of respect for everything that you're doing.
Thank you so much. Yeah, I cannot agree more, because sometimes we see the result. We see how people look like, we see what they do, but that's actually the result in the, as you said, emotional responses, traumas, all the challenges that they've been through in their life. And I think in order for us to actually fully see someone, you have to look at all these things. Like it's impossible, like if you have, let's say, trauma, right? Like physical trauma.
Yeah.
Sometimes we also have to ask the question, like, okay, why does this specific part of the body got injured? Like, why is that specific part of the body is weaker than other parts? Like, what makes it more susceptible for injuries, for traumas, and stuff like that? So we know that our physical body, because I might jump into the physics right now and kind of explain how it looks from the physics perspective.
Yeah.
We know that our physical body is electric, right? Like, we touch something, we can feel that.
Yeah.
But around every electrical thing, around our computer, phone, we have magnetic field.
Yeah.
EMF is so popular nowadays, right?
Yeah.
So there's magnetism around every single cell in your body, around every single organ in your body. That magnetism is your mental, emotional patterns, the different movement in the bodies, right? So sometimes people know that, yeah, emotion can cause the disease. I know that if I'm depressed, if I have a lot of anxiety, a lot of fear, I can manifest some physical symptoms. But people tend to forget that human body is so multidimensional that it's hard to have like one-way route, one line where X caused Y. It's also a possibility that if you don't have a healthy physical cell, the magnetism around that cell is not going to be healthy, which means it might make you feel one way or the other emotionally and mentally. So then you see someone as a perfect storm with all these symptoms, and your question is, where do I even start with this person? Like, where is the cause? Like, and how can I make sure that I'm not treating the result? Because as you were saying about chemical lab works, MRIs and stuff like that, yeah, chemical disbalance, that's already fourth stage of the disease. Because if you ever seen periodic table of elements, what is inside every element? You have protons, electrons, neutrons, all these small particles that we more diving deeper when we learn about physics, right? Later, if you don't solve the chemical disbalance, it can become structural, that you can see in X-rays, CT scans, and stuff like that. And people love those testings.
Yeah.
But a lot of times it's just showing you the last stage of the cell formation.
Got
So
it.
we ended up solving the result over and over and over and over again.
Yeah. Do you have names for these stages, like 1 through 4?
Absolutely.
Yeah.
There's no specific names that you can say, like, first stage is this, second is this, third is this. We just know that first 3 stages are physics disbalance. It's the movement in the physics. Then the 4th stage is chemical, which you see in the blood work, lab work. And the 5th and the 6th is the structure change. So it's hard to separate them because they're so intertwined. And yeah, you always want to see, where was the start?
And when you say, so stages 1 through 3, you said are physics changes. Step 4 is chemical, and then stages 5 and 6 are physical.
Yes.
So when you say stages 1 through 3 are physics, what does that mean? Like, what do you mean by the study of physics?
Yeah.
You know, because I have a general understanding of what quantum physics is, but I think 2-part question here. You know, what does it mean when you say the words quantum physics? And secondly, when you say the physics of the body, what exactly are you referring to? Are you referring to the kinetic movement of it? Or are you referring to something else entirely? Because I'm not sure what you mean when you say that.
Yeah. So if we're getting back to that, I probably would love to separate Newtonian and quantum physics, because these two branches.
Newtonian?
Yes.
Okay.
So
And
Newtonian
quantum.
physics.
Got it. Like, you mean like Isaac Newton?
Yes.
Okay.
So Newtonian physics is what exactly our whole science is based on nowadays, right? We know cause and effect. Cause and effect, cause and effect. We see that, okay, if that person has eye problems, we're going to send him to the eye doctor, and that's it. We look for the cause where the result is, right? That's Newtonian approach. Newton had an amazing ideas. I mean, so many devices and findings is based on Newton ideas and ideologies, which is amazing. But that was made for non-living things.
Yeah.
By default, we applied it for the human body, and we thought like, okay, this is how it should work. But if you ever been to the funeral, you probably noticed that not the structure makes us alive.
Yeah.
Because when you look at the body, like, yeah, it's not alive anymore. So what makes that aliveness, right? There is a movement in the body, however you want to call it. Some people call it chi, energy, electromagnetism, quantum physics, particle movement. It's all about the same, right? So quantum physics more analyze those smallest particles that we cannot observe and see. It tries to analyze how is the movement happen, the movement that we cannot see, that how is that electromagnetic field works, and what shapes that field.
Okay.
So when I talk about physics of the body, I'm talking into more depth than we can see in the blood work, right? Like, I'm talking more about how that small particle movement, how is that communication happen in my body before it even becomes a chemical reaction, before it even touches the chemistry, right? So it's all about those beautiful pathways in our body that we have to see how the whole movement works. And sometimes to understand that, okay, if people have symptoms in their, let's say in their neck, thyroid, any injuries right here, it might not be necessarily related. It might not be necessarily stem from this part of the body. So my goal is to actually see the pathway and the movement, because we know that everything is in movement, right? Like in this reality, like everything is always moving. So if you can actually access that movement, you can see the body physics. When I talk about body physics, there are two things that matter the most to understand that. First of all, electrical flow, the way that electricity moves in your body, right? Again, we know that we are electrical beings. And it gives me a lot of information about the physical body, right? How the physical organ looks like. Another part is light emission. A lot of people know that we are light beings, right? So there is a thing called biophoton, is the smallest particle of light that your biological system emits. So once you can access that biophoton, you can see, okay, how does magnetic part of the body looks like? How is that emotional, mental movement? How is the physical body move in the space, right? The beautiful emission of biophotons give me understanding from which body the issue is actually coming from. Is it coming from the physical? Is it coming from the emotional? Is it coming from the mental pattern? So it's a beautiful exploration in those, mainly these two things. Like we can dive deeper into that.
What was the first one more time again?
Electricity, electrical emission.
And how are you measuring
biophotons.
these?
Yeah, there are specific devices that you can measure that with. Like
Okay.
there are specific devices that have specific probes that actually has a very, very low direct current. Like the current is lower than in your iPhone, right? Like it's not creating any electric shock for people. But to capture your body's electricity and to create the observer's effect in the photon, it's more than enough. And you just put those specific probes in some spaces in your body to access movement. And a lot of times people mix that with chakras and energies and stuff like that.
And when you say like,
that.
sorry, I didn't mean to interrupt
Go ahead.
you. When you're saying that when you're trying to access movement, you're trying to understand how the cells in the body are just reacting to each other, and
How they're
and
communicating.
how they're communicating, and how they're emitting light.
Exactly.
Because these two statistics you believe to be the most important statistics. And I guess, okay, I guess what I would think would be best for just me or any layperson to understand is, why don't you run us through, if somebody came to you, why don't you run us through somebody, the greatest sickness that came to you, and how did you diagnose what was wrong with them for one of these mysterious chronic illnesses, and how were you able to decipher what the issue was through this detection of light and through this detection of electricity?
I had a lot of those interesting cases, but one that came into my mind, like once you asked this question, like I had this girl, she's 16 years old, and no one was able to figure it out what's happening in her body, because she stopped walking, she stopped eating, she was so sensitive to light and sounds. She was not able to function fully. She had to stop, go to school. She was not able to function, talk, because the body was declining every single day with no real reason, right? So what I do in these cases, again, two things, electricity and light emission, to see what happens when chemistry looks fine, because a lot of in a lot of times when we have chronic conditions, your body is so adaptable. Like it's not going to show you in the blood work that something is wrong, like not necessarily, right? Because your body thinks that, oh, that's my climate, this is what I'm living. So it does not necessarily putting you a red flag that something is wrong, because it feels like, okay, that might be my space, this is where I live. So what I want to do, I want to focus on the physics, as I said. What I do, I use this specific device that measures that electricity and light emission. So what I do, I went and started to see all the main systems in the body. You cannot measure only one thing and expect to see the whole body, right?
Yeah.
You want to see lymphatic system, liver, kidney, large intestine, heart, like all these main systems, and see how they work and where actually miscommunication happens. So what we noticed, in like first things that I saw was extreme high inflammation in the liver, right? That when you check liver enzymes, it looks fine, right? Because body still is able to digest. So in the blood work, you don't see that stuff. So once you see inflammation in the liver, what you can see, okay, what is it? With what kind of substance that would create a resonance, right? Because you're always looking for the resonance. And you slowly start adding things like, let's say, mycotoxins, right? Like mold is super popular nowadays. You start adding bacterial, parasitic infections.
What do you mean by you start adding it? Like in the person themselves?
Yeah, specific frequency to add into them and see what happens in their body.
Got it.
Right?
When you say adding a specific frequency, do you mean like them eating mold, or like there's a specific frequency that you can like test against their frequency?
Exactly.
Okay, got it. And so you're using this specific device to essentially test what is making their frequency out of whack? Is that what
Exactly.
it is? Okay.
Yeah, in the simple terms, this is exactly what it is. You add in that device, you have a selector, right? Like you have list of like frequencies and a lot of stuff in there. So you, of course, based on your education,
Yeah.
you can kind of suspect what it can be, right? Like you know what kind of diseases and what kind of symptoms bacteria would create, what kind of symptoms parasites would create, what kind of symptom low-grade viral inflammation would create. So you kind of start, again, you're trying the most as you can based on your education, right? Because if you would like to try all of them, it might take like years, right? Because we have so many different things like floating around us. So what I do, like in this case, like, yeah, it's clearly a viral inflammation if it's not changing when you use antibiotics, when you use specific medication, because bacteria, parasite is something that is pretty big, right? Like, of course, we can't see that, but in the body perspective, it's pretty big. Well, virus, they live directly in the cell. They spread their information in the cell. So it's hard to detect that. But what we actually notice a very, very low-grade viral inflammation. And I think it was like CMV, cytomegalovirus, which was so low that it's impossible to see that in the chemical, like blood work, lab work situation. So when we notice that, we are able to recreate like, okay, what it's needed for your body to build new and healthy cells. Let's say for your liver.
Yeah.
So this is the place where the direct spectrum frequency comes in. When I talk about frequencies, there's a huge misunderstanding nowadays in the mainstream media that people think that frequency is like almost high vibe kind of thing, and you're just all trying to elevate the vibe of the organ.
No.
This is not what it is.
Yeah. So before we get into this, I just want to make sure I understand this completely. So the device you're using, you're able to lock in on the frequency of that person's liver, or does everybody have the same frequency for liver?
Everyone has different cocktail, right?
Yeah.
Because again, as we said, your emotional responses, your traumas, it shapes everything.
Got it. And so where are you putting this device to connect to the frequency of the liver?
You usually use specific pathways, how you know like liver usually goes. Liver pathway starts in the big toe and it goes right here up to your eyes, your hair, and then it goes back. So
Got it.
usually
You mean the meridian line?
Yes.
Okay.
You sometimes use meridian lines, but not all meridians
not
will
all
be
people-
able to.
Okay.
You can't access them all the time, but the easiest way to access subtle energy is usually meridian line.
Got it. Okay. So you're saying there's a difference between pathways and meridian lines.
Exactly.
What is the difference?
Not all the pathways that you want to check has a meridian.
Got it.
Right? Because we have 12 main meridians.
Okay. I
And
didn't
you
know
have
that.
more pathways in the body. So meridian is an amazing tool, and I sometimes use meridians to actually just show people, hey, this is exactly why you feel symptom in this place, where the organ located in your gut, for example, right?
Yeah.
So it helps me to show people the visual, but we have more pathways than meridian lines. But sometimes, yeah, meridians are an amazing tool to access that subtle energy.
Okay.
That's actually, by the science, is the only way how you can access that subtle energy, because chakra systems and stuff like that, it's very broad and it's not specific.
Gotcha.
So yeah, every single person has a very interesting cocktail of that specific organ, right? We know that, for example, liver has 78 segments. In one segment, you have from 500 to 1500 frequencies. So imagine the amount of numbers, right?
Yeah.
So my job is actually to find which part of that segment, like in which part of that organ, like in which segment, in what frequency there is disbalance, and how I can introduce that information for your body again. So this is exactly where the direct spectrum frequency medicine comes in, where you actually putting that specific electromagnetic information in your body,
Yeah.
so your body would be able to capture that and build new and healthy cell. Because the critical moment is we have chronic symptoms because your body builds new cells all the time.
Yeah.
But in order to save energy, as all of us do, you just copy paste the same stuff. Like imagine a person who works in sales, right? Like they have the pitch that works great. Like why should I every morning change my pitch?
Yeah.
There is no point. Like it saves me
Yeah.
energy. But until something changes. If something changes, let's say price, location, technical parameters of the thing that you are selling, you have to adjust your pitch.
Yeah.
So this is exactly what I'm trying to do. I'm trying to give your
Yeah.
body a different information so it would be able to build new and different cell. Because your liver, let's say you have new cells every 8-16 weeks.
Yeah.
You have absolutely new organ, let's say. But if nothing changes, nothing changes.
Okay. So I love all this, and the reason I resonate with this really well is I've in the last couple of years I started going to a facility down in San Diego called Hydrate Spa, and we do these brain scans called NLS scans, and they're rife and scalar frequencies.
Beautiful.
And so the scans take anywhere, depending on how many functions of the body we want to scan, can take anywhere from 3 to 6 hours. And so you literally see it scanned, like everything from your nail follicles to parasites in your body, bacteria, your skin on your face, your lining of your stomach, every single function down to your chromosomes. And so the reason I bring this up is there needs to be a basic understanding that every single cell and every single part of your body has a different frequency.
Of course.
And there's thousands and thousands and thousands of frequencies. So I guess I'm just really impressed in the understanding that, yeah, it takes a lot of work to figure out what potentially could be causing the problem. I would love to connect you to these people because these brain scans, they actually print out a full report and show you what is having a chronic issue.
Yeah.
These scans actually detect inflammation within the body wherever it's occurring through these scans. And then what it does is it shoots it with the inverse or the positive frequency that would help to realign it for the optimal functioning of that frequency itself. And so by doing that, it helps reduce the inflammation within the body. So it sounds like you're doing something similar along the lines of what this does, but then you're also helping to provide medication and recommendations on other treatments they can do. The treatment that I'm talking about, or this brain scan, is just simply shooting the inverse or the positive frequency to enhance or to kill the bacteria or the parasites within the body. Does it sound similar to what you do, or is
It's a little similar, but it's also a little different, right?
Yeah.
Because with the things, as you explained, you can modify the condition, right? But how you can make sure that that condition won't come back.
Exactly, because that's not solving the problem.
Yeah.
Yeah.
So it's a beautiful, it's a beautiful modality.
Yeah.
Scalar frequency, it's a great thing too. Like I love direct spectrum frequencies more because scalar is like, as you're shooting something and you expect it to lock in.
Yeah.
Well, it's not necessarily gonna do that.
Yeah.
And it's also targeting the cells that are already here.
Yeah.
Well, in the meantime, your body's gonna build the new cells that are gonna be identical. So they might need the same stuff again, the same supplementation, the same medication.
Yeah.
Because we get locked in specific modalities like that, supplements, medications, because it's not changing the cell that it's about to come in.
No, you're literally bringing up the great point. So like for me, what always comes up what inflamed is my lungs because I vape, right? It's like, sure, I'm treating the symptom, but it's not actually solving the problem.
Sure.
Yeah, and so this is the same exact thing. This test that I'm telling you about, it's telling you about the level 4, and it does help treat the symptom, but it's not solving the problem because it requires me to make a change in my life and the habits that I'm bringing forward.
Exactly. All these habits, like it makes...
Yeah.
It makes such a big difference. But again, as a practitioner, like my job is to meet person where they are, right?
Yeah.
Like if you're going to tell me like, no, I love vaping and I'm going to do that.
Yeah.
Okay, let's see what I can do. What would be the action plan for me to make sure that we can actually prevent your lungs from having any disease or condition? Is it possible? Absolutely possible. Like everything is possible in this magical universe, right?
Yeah, 100%.
But you have to see that, okay, which part of the lungs are the most effective? And let's find the reason why that person loves to vape.
Yeah.
What does that habit gives for that specific person? Like, is it emotional? Is it mental? Or is it physical attachment at this point, right?
Yeah.
And if it also penetrates all these levels, you need a different action plan. So it's all about exploration. Every single person is so different. And also, it's interesting to explore how specific traumatic events, for example, in your childhood, teenage years, earlier in life, can shape that need for vaping. Like, what are we trying to access with this habit?
Yeah.
So it's the whole, every single person is so different.
Yeah.
Then with, modalities like that, you would see that, sure, your lungs are reacting. That would be more weird if they would not react, right?
Yeah.
Like if you're actually adding the toxin in them every single day. So it's a beautiful way for them to react. It's the defense mechanism.
Yeah.
Your body's not trying to make you sick. It's trying to defend you from the toxin.
Yeah, 100%. And just listening to you, right? The way that you're approaching things is how I believe that the future needs to be approached. But the question is, not the question. I mean, a lot of people are just not as educated as you are, right? And they just don't know. A lot of people are just doing the best with the information that they have.
course.
And that's why I have a lot of respect for doctors. I'm like, a lot of people are like, they're not fixing the problem. Like, yeah, but they're doing the best they can. Their intention is to help you get better.
Of course.
So, for somebody like you who's so educated, and you're obviously doing it on a person by person basis as they come to you, right? But what kind of world would it look like in the future if someone like you managed an office that had the spectrum of the variety of different practitioners that could provide all the different types of healing that are really necessary to let's not use that word, to help people heal, right? And this is something I think of often because, like we discussed, being a personal injury attorney, I'm constantly sending people to doctors. And I understand that a lot of times some of these issues that the clients are having symptoms for, it's not going to get solved by a chiropractic adjustment. It's not going to get solved by a steroid shot or by something that's just masking the pain. It requires them to embrace an entire lifestyle change. And so I try to always include the psychological aspect and get them therapy and try to do the best I can with the resources I have. But there's not a lot of offices that offer all these different types of modalities. And not only that, but insurance companies won't even pay for things like frequency healing, which is really going to solve the problem significantly more than just giving someone a steroid injection. So yeah, I don't know. I know that was a very long-winded whole breadth question, but I'm sure that you've thought about this.
Yeah.
And what are your thoughts on this?
I mean, it's work in progress. I'm teaching other doctors and other people how to look at the person as a whole. Like, I'm actually working on creating an institute where people can learn this stuff. And yeah, I'm trying to do that. I'm pretty new in United States, though. I moved here 2.5 years ago. And yeah, my whole practice was word of mouth based, and all these people that are coming to see me, there are a lot of doctors and people who are already in the healing space.
Yeah.
But once they start healing themselves, like in the method that I usually do, they're like, oh my God, wait a second, like I want to learn this.
Yeah.
So that's why I started teaching people. And yeah, it's definitely something that we thinking about, and I would love to create the space where more and more people can do that, because it's all connected. The human body is so perfect, actually, that you just have to give it the right tools to actually heal. Not I'm healing the patients. Like, and a lot of times people come and like, oh my God, you healed me. I didn't do anything. Like, I literally just provide you information that you need. I just give your body a direction sometimes. That's it. Your body is able to heal itself. And that's probably the one thing that I'm trying to tell in every podcast, like every interview that I have, that your body's healing itself. Like you can do that. But also, we have to pinpoint where the start is, because I just want to take your example, because what I'm hearing from you, you mentioned the lungs, you mentioned that you have some interest in like gut microbiome, like you have injuries right here.
Yeah.
Well, if we explore this, first of all, everything is in unity in this universe, right? There's no black or white, there is no good or bad, everything is a beautiful union.
Yeah.
So in the human body, their organs, they work as a couples, right? Your lungs and your intestine, that's the couple, right? Like if your lungs are not doing well, okay, what are we going to notice? Most likely people are going to have injuries right here or in their arms, because that's the pathway how our lungs usually brings photons in. So if your lungs are weakened, that part is weaker in your body on its own, like right away. Another thing, if lung and large intestine work together, what's happening in the large intestine? What happens if one person from the couple loses their job, right? Well, another person has to work more in order to maintain the lifestyle, for example, that they have. So your large intestine has to overwork. What happens then? Where's the pathway of the large intestine? It goes right here, sinuses, right? TMJ, all of that is under large intestine control. So we have to explore, wait a second, maybe intestine is fine. Maybe that microbiome is not super healthy because the lungs are not doing well. Yeah. And we have to see where the start is. Because again, you're treating the symptom then, right? Like you're not treating the cause, you're treating the result. And also, we have to understand that these organs, as every cell in those organs, they have magnetic field. What would that bring? Usually, if we have people with lung disbalance in the magnetism, people love to communicate as you do, right? Like we have podcasts and you love to talk with people. Yeah. That's the most common pattern when the lungs are a little weakened, let's say, right? Like this is what we see mentally. Also, those people sometimes can be nostalgic, melancholic. They think a lot about things that happen. They they're happy about it, but the focus might be in the past a little bit, because this is how magnetism works of those organs. There is potential in grief, and a lot of times people start smoking because of grief or repressed sadness, right? So because that is magnetical part of that organ, and we have to explore then, where is the start? Why is my body a good place for those bacteria to live in my gut? What's creating a beautiful environment, a climate for them to thrive? Your body's pretty smart to eliminate the bacteria and parasites that it does not need. Why it's not doing that? There is something that creates that beautiful environment. So that's why you have to look at the body as a whole. You cannot check only one place of the body and think that you know the cause. Like you can't do just one testing and think like, oh my God, I tested my gut. I see dysbiosis. That's probably the cause of my symptoms. Well, yeah, but you did not ask the question like, why is my body a good place for those bacteria to live? Why that even was created? Because when you just treat that, it's the matter of time while your body's like, okay, let's do the same, maybe in the different area, right? Yeah. So it's all very much connected. And like, of course, treatment for all the injuries and stuff, it's amazing. But if you don't fix the quote unquote, fix foundation of these organs and cells, that area is going to be the sensitive one. So it's all about exploration and seeing like, where does it start? What does it mean? And where can we actually change that?
Everything you said hits very deeply. That's
beautiful. Yeah, that's the goal.
Yeah, that's the goal. So yeah, I agree. And I was just trying to process all of it because I'm trying to understand and comprehend. There's obviously so many different layers to it.
Of course.
Like the emotional aspect as to why I might choose to vape or smoke, right? And then there's the layers of understanding that it is connected to the gut biome and that my intestines are working harder because my lungs are not as strong. And I didn't know that those systems were connected to the shoulders because it would make complete sense. And so, yeah, for me, I guess just, being in a high intense stress job and just dealing with a lot of people, because I feel like for me, I hold space for a living. Right. And just being an attorney. And so there are definitely many times where I find myself reaching to a vape out of anxiousness. And
of course.
And at the same time, you brought it up too, because I do enjoy it for the nicotine purposes, because it also signals to my brain that we're getting into a flow state.
Sure.
And so when you were bringing up earlier, maybe there's other ways for me to engage that flow state, maybe with nicotine without smoking. Maybe there's a more normal way to do, or not normal way, but better way for my body to do it, because maybe I do enjoy being in that state of mind, which helps me get more work done. So there's a lot of stuff that I was just digesting and thinking about while you were speaking recently. And yeah, everything you said hit really hard for home. And I think after this, we should definitely talk. I'd love to maybe do a session, actually talk about how I can work through some of this stuff, because it's when one part of your body is not working, it affects everything else. And it affects your mental status. And I think too, even speaking to you about this also, is like, I've been dealing with this injury for almost 7 years now. And it's been a back and forth with, I've done stem cells, I've done so many different types of treatment, I've done physical therapy. And maybe it's because I'm not treating the root emotional cause of what it is.
Totally possible.
Yeah.
All these things, like, it's a clue, right?
Yeah.
Like chemical, when you do blood work, it's a clue. Like when you measure the electricity, light emission, it's a clue. Emotional and whatever people say subjectively, it's a clue, right?
Yeah.
Like we are so multidimensional that, again, it's impossible to draw this line. X caused Y.
Yeah.
It most likely, there's a beautiful storm in your body for all these little things that build up.
Yeah.
And, I have this visual that I say to people sometimes. Imagine when you wake up in the morning, you're like an empty cup, like empty glass of water. There's no water in it. Well, you add some low-grade viral inflammation that we are not aware of. You add some emotional stress. You add some mental stuff that you're dealing with. And then you're functioning while your water is till here.
Yeah.
So then any last drop of anything can actually create a flare-up. And usually we just look at that last bit and think like, oh, that's the cause. This is what caused all of it.
Yeah.
Well, you don't see what made your body, a perfect storm for that to happen.
No.
So that's why you have to kind of take a step back and see, okay, what's actually happening on all these layers, right? Because, some people have reactions because of emotional causes. Some people have it because of mental causes. Some people have because of physical causes. It's like, and it's all different, right?
Yeah.
But just know that one place is going to affect all the other places. Like you're so multidimensional, and communication happens all the time.
Yeah.
All the time. We're not aware of it, but it happens.
Yeah.
So, and it's all, your body is not trying to make you sick. It's actually trying to make you healthy. Like it's always trying to keep you right here focused. And all these things that you do, like just be logical and ask yourself this question. If I have to do something for 7 years, it means I'm not touching something that's actually causing that.
Yeah.
Because healing happens like this.
Yeah.
If you just create a possibility and fraction in reality, it can happen like this.
Yeah.
But it means we're probably just focusing on the result all the time. We're focusing on what we see here and now. But your body is building new cells so fast, we would die in 4 days if that would stop.
Yeah.
So imagine how quick the process is. And if you're always focusing on the cell that it's already here, well, yeah, you modifying the condition, you will make people feel better. But again, the question is how long that's going to stay.
Yeah.
And that's why we have repetitively see patients who trying to all these modalities and nothing helps.
Yeah.
So you have to look at the person and actually see where the cause for that is.
Yeah.
Because also emotional body is in between two extremely strong forces, your physical and your mental bodies, right?
Yeah.
So imagine a physical body lives one life. It has some injuries, trying to heal that, always focus in there. Mentally, you're always jumping around in places with people. You're trying to understand them, like, you're not present here. Your emotional body is like in between these two. And it's like, oh, how do I keep you guys aligned? Like, how do we all work together? So it usually has two options. It can expand very much. And then we see people who are very much, we call those people bipolar sometimes, right? They swing so much from low lows, high highs, and those emotional responses are so big, right? Again, that's a body's defense to keep you aligned. That's the only goal. Another option, if you mentally work a lot, your emotional body's like, how do I keep up with this movement? Like, how do I move this fast as mental body? It usually limits itself. And then that pendulum does not swing much. We have people with apathy, neutrality, where it's like, it's all good. Like, I don't feel depressed, sad, or angry, but joy and excitement, it's hard to feel that too, right? Like, it's so limited range that we just don't feel that.
Yeah.
And then we try to see, like, okay, where's this coming from? Because again, it might be physical body, it might be mental, it might be emotional. It's all, and they all have different movement. And the best visual, mentally and emotionally, we can travel anywhere. We can be in Fiji Islands right now. We start talking about it, we feel it. Well, physical body stays exactly right here where it started.
Yeah.
So it does not move that quickly, but it's always trying to match that movement. So of course, if you mentally always somewhere else, your physical body will be exhausted. Like, you're most likely going to have a lot of fatigue in the body because it's tried to, like, it's going on the full speed, but it still cannot catch it. Because people know that your state creates reality, right? Everyone talks about it. Yeah, but your past state created this reality because what you see, it's already the past. Like, if we think that time exists, right? So everything that you're thinking right now is going to be a reality like very soon, but not now yet, because the physical, dense consciousness, like dense awareness, does not move that quickly. So that's why you have to look at the body as a whole and say, like, okay, let me see in which of those layers actually the disbalance starts, how it penetrates or not. Because as you were mentioning, I send people to do some different healings, like, let's say, therapy, emotional healing, and different types of modalities, but it does not change everything, because a lot of people actually functioning in such a body's dissociation that everything that you do just staying in the one field. And therapy is for mental body. If your body is not aligned, it's just going to stay in the mental. And sometimes we reach the point where it's like, therapy is an amazing tool for awareness. But sometimes we're too aware where it's like, okay, cool, I know why I do these things. I know what it makes me feel. I know all the reasons, but I still do that. So it still stays in the mental field. So how do you actually align the person that all the things that he or she does actually penetrates and is in communication and in the flow?
Gotcha.
I don't even know if I answered your question, but I went somewhere.
No, you definitely answered my question. And you answered many more questions, and I'm just letting you finish your train of thought. I mean, with the last part that you brought up, right, it's like a lot of times you are aware of what the problem is, but you need to then integrate it and then move into actual action to take what you've learned and then get it to the next step. And then the first part that you brought up, you were talking about how, it's the straw that breaks the camel's back, essentially meaning that, people think that it's the last thing that happened that is really the cause of the issue, but it's not at all. It's like when you get in a fight with, your girlfriend or your husband in your situation and they didn't do the dishes, you're not actually pissed off about them not doing the
Of
dishes.
course.
You're pissed off about maybe the fact that you've not been communicating well, you've not been
Course.
able to express yourself. There's some resentment there, right? So it's a layered thing. And then finally, the fact that they didn't do the dishes on this one night, you blew up about that. And so yeah, it's a lot of people just focus on the end point, but it's not realizing that there's so much more that usually gets a person to a breaking point.
Exactly.
And then you brought up another thing too, in the regards of the swinging of the emotional between emotions back and forth. For me, it really hit home because a lot of times in my job, I'm supposed to be a rock for people. And so sometimes I don't feel the full breadth of the emotion and I kind of like limit myself in because I'm trying to stay like, strong
Sure.
and focused for people. And when you brought up the not feeling as much joy and happiness, that hit home because sometimes because I don't allow myself to feel the full breadth and depth of the sadness because I'm trying to stay
Sure.
on point for the people I'm trying to help, sometimes I don't feel the full joy that a lot of my friends feel in certain situations where I know I should feel happier or I should feel better. And so
It's on the same spectrum.
it's on the same
right?
spectrum. Yeah.
It's just how much you let your pendulum to swing. Like
Yeah.
what is your range, right?
Yeah.
So, and yeah, we have healthy ranges and sometimes we have limited ranges.
Yeah.
But again, it's not something that you should judge. It's something that, okay, you should explore and I would invite you to explore.
Yeah.
Why would I do that? And you answered your question, like, because I'm trying to stay strong for my clients, right?
Yeah.
I'm trying to stay strong when I have to solve the situation. Like it helps me to be more mental and see what I can do. So you have the reason for that.
Yeah.
But again, healthy range, healthy spectrum, it helps you to feel all of it in between.
Yeah. Fantastic. And you said you've only been in America for 2 years?
2.5, yeah.
2.5 years. Your English is fantastic. I mean, you're explaining very
Thank you.
complex topics in a very succinct and very understandable way.
Thank you.
And you're doing a great job.
I think it's necessary that there is no need for me to talk in these scientific materials for people who don't study that. And not
Yeah.
everyone has to study that. I
No.
think the knowledge is actually, first of all, I think that knowledge is internal.
Yeah.
We tend to externalize knowledge so much
Yeah.
that you have to go to university and listen for this expert and like
Yeah.
do this and this and that. Yeah, sure, it's going to give you some guidance.
Yeah.
It's going to give you a baseline, but the knowledge is actually internal where you can actually embody everything and just provide that for other people.
Yeah.
So I think that it's necessary for me to be able to explain that in the way that everyone can understand.
Yeah.
Because there is no need for everyone to know the science behind that.
Yeah, I mean, you can feel it in your body is exactly what you're talking about.
Yeah.
It's like I listen a lot to Andrew Huberman.
Yeah.
And Huberman will explain the high level science which he would teach to his Stanford students.
Sure.
And I like don't understand it, but I can feel it. And then he explains it in the layman's terms. I'm like, okay, I got it. And it's like I don't need to know the high level. I'm glad that
course.
he took time to explain the high level just because my brain works like that. I'm like, oh, amazing. But realistically, I don't really understand the full breadth and details of what he just explained to
Sure.
me. So when he then explains it on the lower level, I can just feel it and now I understand it. And even though I don't understand on the high level, I could still explain it to another person with that low level explanation because they can feel my understanding and then they take that understanding with them too.
It's a beautiful sharing of energy and information. And it's like the more educated we are, the more the whole consciousness of this planet, it's just
Yeah.
getting elevated more and more. So I'm happy to share all the time. I'm just
Yeah.
trying to find the ways, how do I share it on this
Yeah.
basic level where people can understand.
Yeah, I was watching an Aubrey Marcus podcast with this gentleman named Nassim. I don't remember his last name, but he is a quantum physicist. And he was talking about how there was this program in the U.S. Air Force, essentially how these fighters, pilots, were trying to get them more in line with this amazing plane that they were flying. And so they were teaching them meditation so that they could get more zen and calm down
course.
and get in alignment. And the more they meditated and the more educated they got, the more that they didn't want to do their jobs because they're like, I don't want to kill somebody. I refuse to hurt another person. And it shows the more you become like aware and the more you learn about the world and how it works, it's like you understand that there's enough resources, there's enough to go around for everyone. Why are we killing people for more when realistically all we're doing is promoting the goals of less than 1% of the world so that they can get more and they can have more so that they can hurt other people more.
Yeah.
And so the more we tap into that consciousness, the more we become educated, the more we enhance ourselves, the more we realize that a lot of the way that the world is being run is done from a very unconscious, dark, traumatic a place that people are just trying to achieve more because of the things that they've maybe suffered when they have children, and they just need to maybe take a moment for themselves and learn more and grow themselves.
Self-awareness is something that I think it should be taught in school. Like, I mean,
Yeah.
if we can actually teach people how to be self-aware, what's happening in my body,
Yeah.
what do I feel, and why do I think the way that I think, the world would be a better place. But also, we get back to the same that everything is in unity, right?
Yeah.
The more people are elevating their consciousness and trying to be in that oneness in creation and whatever, the equal amount of people is going in the opposite direction.
Yeah.
Because it all has to be in one. Like, it's all beautiful balance. So that's why I always encourage people, like, we all tend to like be so conscious and like aware, and then you see a homeless person on the street and you judge them. Well, no, like your perspective should be, okay, thank you. Like, because all these people letting me to elevate.
Yeah.
It's just a matter of choice, right? So it's beautiful to see how more and more people actually getting educated, aware, and they want to create this beautiful, shift in this planet.
Yeah, this reminds me of, I went to this event called Love Rising this last weekend. Do you know Blue of Earth? Have you
Yeah.
heard? So Blue was speaking at this
Yeah.
event, and she was talking about how there are some people that literally like will attack her on her social media, and they'd be like, "You should kill yourself," right? And I remember at one point I posted something on my social media that triggered some individuals, and same thing. They were like, "Oh, I know where you are, and you're." I don't want to get into the details of what they said, but the details were essentially very violent and aggressive. And the way that some people would want to respond is they want to respond aggressively. But the truth of the matter is, for someone to get to the point that they're responding to you behind a keyboard with so much anger, that person needs more love than anybody else.
Exactly.
And instead of responding with anger and with the same emotion that they're pushing towards you, you probably should reply with more kindness than you have to your best friend who sent you something supportive, because those are the ones that are suffering the most.
Exactly. I cannot agree more. It's like, this is what it is. And again, you just want to offer the other side of the spectrum for that person. Like, if
Yeah.
it comes with violence and aggression, like, you just want to
Yeah.
offer some love and kindness, where it's
Yeah.
like, I'm sorry, like, I wish
Yeah.
you heal. That's all the things I wish you.
Yeah, I mean, it's the same thing that you're talking about with the healing of the frequencies,
Mm-hmm.
right? If their frequency is such a dark frequency, then you want to give them the inversion, which will help to balance their frequency.
Yeah. And also notice, like, I think it's a very good example when we are in partnership, right? Imagine you have amazing day, like your mood is so good. Like, you come back home and your partner's having the worst day ever.
Yeah.
You're not going to be like, oh my God, what's up? What's happening? Let's go out. You're going to be like, ugh.
Yeah.
What happened, like what we can do about it.
Yeah.
Subconsciously, we match people that we are in. And your electromagnetic field is 6 feet from you,
Yeah.
right? So if you put people close, they share the same mental and emotional patterns. They
Yeah.
usually do. If you notice places like offices, for example, people sit pretty close. Well, if you have a smart CEO who understands about electromagnetism and physics, I know if I want to make people to work for the same goal, I want to make them sit pretty close. They're going to have the same goal.
Yeah.
Well, if you ever been to therapy, you probably notice how far the therapist sits from people. If I don't want to take your mental stuff that's happening in your mind, I just want to take a step back. So that's the easiest way to see that it's actually happening all the time. If we are not aware of it, it does not mean that it's not exist, right?
Yeah.
So every time when you see someone, you're subconsciously going to try to match them. And this
Yeah.
is exactly why people say that, oh, it matters who you spend your time with. Like, be very careful who you spend your time with,
Yeah.
because you're going to match those people at some levels.
Yeah, no, you're absolutely correct. I mean, you literally absorb everything that's going on around you.
Everything.
And even Awais was explaining that we are now having science that is explaining that we are absorbing the gut biome of the people that we are sitting close to.
We are
through
absorbing
aerosol.
everything.
Yeah,
Like, there is everything affects everything. It's such a beautiful intraconnectedness
Yeah.
that it's hard to separate who is who at that moment.
Yeah.
It's just all together intertwined. We are absorbing everything from other person that we spend time with.
Yeah.
And that's why it's extremely important who you spend your time with.
Yeah.
And you are absorbing everything from the space that you are in. And you equally creating that space that you are in. So it's all beautiful co-creation.
It can be. Mm-hmm. Yeah, if you're spending time with the right people.
Exactly.
Yeah. Oh, man. Yeah, this has been an amazing conversation. I really respect the level of education that you have. You
Thank
can hear
you.
it coming through on multiple levels. And you mentioned earlier at the beginning of the podcast, you said that you were going through your own health journey, and that's how you ended up going down this path. Do you mind sharing details about that? Because I love to hear origin stories, to hear how you ended up coming to where you are, and also how did you figure out the ailments that you had and
Yeah.
what you were suffering? If you
I'm
don't
happy
mind.
to share that. So basically, I was the person who's all like, when you're in the medical school, you think first of all that you have every single disease that you learn about, right? Like
Yeah.
it's a kind of
I've dated
syndrome.
several nurses. They all think that they're like, I have this weird thing. I'm like, what do you mean you have
Yeah.
this weird thing? I'm like, you're gonna be fine. It's gonna be okay.
Whatever you're learning about, you
Yeah.
think that, oh my God,
That's
that's
it.
me.
Yeah.
So that's one element.
Yeah.
But basically, I used to have migraines. I had migraine like every single day for 3 years, like every single day. I had urinary tract infections for 10 times per month to the point where I was not able to use bathroom and stuff like that. I had SIBO, leaky gut, chronic fatigue, chronic pain syndrome, somatoformic autonomic dysfunction, which means that your nervous system is not sending signal to any organ in your body to function fully. And I also had bleeding corneas, like I was not able to see. My corneas were bleeding all the time. So
Your
herpes virus.
corneas were bleeding?
Yeah, herpes virus ate my cornea, so it's like always bleeding and
Oh
stuff.
my God.
And no one, again, from the Western medicine perspective, were able to figure this out. So, of course, different types of medication and stuff like that, like
Yeah.
plenty of procedures. Nothing helped. And the thing that I'm doing right now, that was the only thing that brought me back to life. And that's why I decided to do that for people, because I
Yeah.
reached the point where I was not able to study. I was not able to work. I'm like, okay, I have no idea what's next.
Yeah.
So that was the only thing that helped me.
Holy crap. I'm trying to understand the whole bleeding of the cornea thing, but also, I mean, it's this is how I think a lot of the greatest people in the world come to be, right? It's through the adversity and the struggle that they've been through. And many times the greater the struggle, the greater the person comes out on the other end, right?
It's just an experience that was needed, right? And of course, when we are in that experience, it's like, oh my God, why?
Yeah.
But then like when time passes, it's like, okay, that's why.
Yeah.
That's why.
Yeah, I mean, you ask God to be strong. He's not going to
Exactly.
present you with easy times. It's like if you need to be strong and you want to do great things,
Yeah.
you're going to get presented with difficult times and difficult things to overcome. So it's very real.
And that's why I have this passion to help people, because I know what it means when it's like, okay, I have no idea what's next. I tried everything and like nothing helps me and I don't know what to do.
Yeah.
So that's why I have passion and just always say to people like, there's always a way. Keep looking and do that again and
Yeah.
do that again and you will find it.
Yeah. A lot of respect for you also taking something that was the hardest time in your life and turning it into a superpower and being like, I'm going to use this to help other individuals.
Yeah.
In my experience, when people go through major adversity, right, they're either going to go down the hole and it's going to destroy them, or it's going to bring them out stronger on the other end. When you were at your toughest of times, what were some of the emotional struggles that you were going through at that time?
Oh, emotional, like my emotional body was like devastated. Like I felt everything from depression, anxiety to PTSD, like almost being in the hospital because it felt like, oh my God, like something is wrong all the time. So it's
Yeah.
like, it was a mix of all these emotions that people don't enjoy to feel. But yeah, it takes time. And I used to have this, apocalyptic thinking, which is actually very common for people who have kidney or urinary bladder symptoms, that, oh my God, something happens is the end of the world.
Yeah.
But then you kind of learn that no, it just was a mental pattern that your body was using to keep you aligned in that reality that you are in. You change the physical cell, mental and emotional patterns changes equally as when you change emotion and mental patterns and you change physical cell. It's not one way route. It's all both ways. So you just have to find where is the start. And in my case, direct spectrum frequencies recreated the cell, and I haven't used anything since forever. And I always say to people, like when they come to see me, they're like, how long I will have to be on it? Like when I'm going to see you again? I'm like, I don't want to see you all the time.
Yeah.
If I see you all the time, it means it's not working, right?
Yeah.
And I want to make it work.
Yeah.
So I usually see people like once or twice for physical stuff. If people want to dive deeper in the consciousness flows and stuff, I'm happy to guide them.
Yeah.
But for physical problems that people have, usually 1 or 2 times, and that's about it.
Okay.
And that's the goal for me.
And how long are these sessions?
Usually, I love to take my sweet time and I love to explain everything to people because I believe that knowledge is power. Once you are aware what's happening, like from which side it's coming and stuff, usually it takes about 2.5 hours
Okay.
to check and explain. And then I create the personalized frequency medicine and then I give it to you. And usually people use it for a month, 2 months, and that's it.
Got it. And so the personal frequency medicine, is this where you put a frequency in like a liquid or something?
Yeah,
And then they
usually
do a dropper every single day? Yeah. So,
exactly.
okay.
It requires different mediums, right? So sometimes everyone knows that homeopathy, for example, is in sugar pellets, right? Like you see these little sugar pellets.
I didn't know that. Yeah.
So homeopathy is usually in the sugar pellets, right?
What is homeopathy?
Homeopathy is vital or emotional body healing modality that
Okay.
usually penetrates the physical body too. And there's a lot of science behind that where people develop that different, natural herbs, natural frequencies that are in the world, they can resonate with the human beings, right? They have, as you were saying in Ayurveda, we have these Vita, Kapha and stuff like that. In homeopathy, they have specific stances that they usually put people into specific boxes and like, oh, you match this kind of substance. Let's give it to you and see how it feels.
Okay.
Homeopathy is amazing if someone has emotional or vital body problems because that movement is specifically for that body. Because again, every single body has different healing modalities, right? And we don't know that, so we usually mix everything and expect to feel better. And we do for a short period of time.
Yeah.
So I usually use liquid. I have to prepare the mediums. There's no such thing as like you infuse the frequency in the coffee cup and you think that it's gonna hold there. No, we did the research in London and we saw that usually if you have a good medium, that frequency changes the structure and it stays in the medium for 8-9 months. So it's easy to, travel with it, have it. But usually I have people to use it for a month, 2 months, and that's about it. Then we can change some things and that's it. I don't want you to even use the frequency medicine all the time. Because again, if you're using something all the time, the question is like, what is it actually doing for me?
Yeah. What is a good medium?
Different frequencies require different mediums.
Okay.
Every single person will require different types of mediums. So it's like, you can use like distilled water per se. Like
Yeah.
people say that, oh, can I just infuse it in like this water? It has to be specific concentration of like trace minerals and stuff that would be able to capture and hold that frequency.
Oh.
Because, for example, when you mentioned scalar frequency does not hold in the mediums. Like scalar frequency just goes through you. That's it. It spreads. Direct spectrum frequency is actually when you're trying to infuse some specific medium, right? So that medium has to have specific, qualities in order to capture that frequency. And again, if you're working with a physical body, the layout of the frequencies is different. If you're working with emotional body, if that's the cause, the spectrum of the frequencies are different, which needs different medium. With a mental body, requires absolutely different. Supramental, which is higher than mental, it's all the sacred geometries and stuff. That requires another frequency. So that requires different mediums. And it's an exploration with every single person. Because even your traumas that you went through, they affect your magnetism. What happens when the physical cell does not have magnetic layer?
Yeah.
It becomes like an open door for anything to come and live with it.
Yeah.
So it's exploration.
I mean, I love it. And once again, I can understand why maybe this also wouldn't resonate with all different types of doctors because it's so much more work to really figure out the details. But also it's like you're actually providing healing. You're not just doing it for the sake of doing a job just so you can get paid, where the more clients you see and the more drugs you prescribe, the more you get paid. Mm-hmm. So it's a whole different level of consciousness, for lack of a better term, and understanding that, if you really are a healer and you really want to help people, it's getting down to the root problem. It's helping them fix it. And also just the educations that you received about these frequencies. This is not something that they teach in normal school. How did you learn them?
It's an exploration in all these different fields. And then you're going into anywhere that I can grasp it, I'm going to go there and try to learn. Because again, depending on who you're learning from, you're going to have different information.
Yeah.
So my goal is to kind of get as most information as I can and then choose like, okay, where's my truth? Because that can be truth for some people, not necessarily for me.
Of course.
But I think that the high level consciousness people, let's say, you are in the stand where it's like all the truth can exist at the same time. I'm just choosing like which one is mine and where I want to proceed with.
Yeah.
And of course, like this 3D world, it changes things, right? Like if I would want to make more money and just to make sure that I see more people, I can do that in an hour and that's it. And you go. But I choose to explain that for people, right? And actually spend some time with them where they can notice that, oh my God, things can change. Because we coming from this conditioning where like, no, if I have this condition, there is no way for me to change it. There is always a way.
Yeah.
So that's my belief, and there is nothing that can change that belief. There's always a way.
Yeah, there's always a way. This is something I believe too. Whenever people are like using negative language or using absolute language, I'm like, no, there's always a solution. You just got to be willing to take the time to find it.
Yeah.
And that's the thing is most people don't want to put the time and effort into it. They're like, no, it's just easier to deny myself and stay in this state of delusion. But that's something that will take them time to work through, and hopefully sooner rather than later for most. Yeah.
It's I just let people stay where they want to stay. It's like there's no like, even when I go to like events and stuff, when people share things, they don't know what I do, like what is my level of education, understandings.
Yeah.
I don't even share that. I'm like, if there's someone who needs help, they always ask or give you a hint that like, hey, I would love to have some different information. But if people are staying like, there is no way for me to heal, like I have this condition, like I will have to be on this medication the rest of my life, it's like, okay.
Yeah.
Okay.
Yeah. This is something that I've struggled with throughout my life, is offering too much information when it's not asked for. And
It's a lesson.
Yeah. And I was looking at, because Blue was mentioning the gene keys stuff, and I was looking up my gene keys the other day, and one of the main points was when I'm invited or when I'm asked, people will receive what I'm saying in a very deep and like sincere way. But if I offer things to those who are not asking, it will fall upon deaf ears. And so it's been a huge lesson for me to, even when I'm like, for example, at let's say a party, just hanging out with friends, just like I just get so excited about talking about things all the time. Obviously part of the reason I have a podcast.
Yeah.
And I just want to share with others. But I've just learned the practice of waiting for people to come and ask me, because through my own self-exploration and taking the time to educate myself and improve myself in every way I can, there is just so much information I want to share with others, because I love my friends and I love my family, and I want them to heal themselves and I want them to get better. But when I share it with people that are not ready, it's a waste of my energy and it's a waste of my time. And it's more important that I hold that energy for the people that actually do want it and do need it.
Exactly. Like we always want to share, and like, everything wants to be alive in this universe, right? Like you have knowledge, you just want to put it on like, give it to someone else. So you keep it alive, right?
Yeah.
And it's beautiful. And first of all, I love gene keys, and I love all that exploration of the body too, because genetics is another topic. Like we can dive into that and see what actually epigenetics and what it is. So we can dive into that. I'm happy to do that at some point. So the thought that I wanted to say, it's like, it's so important for us to actually see where that energy has to move, because it's always moving, right?
Yeah.
And sometimes it's better to preserve that until someone needs that knowledge.
Yeah.
Not that those people not deserve it or they don't need that.
Yeah.
They might need that, and of course they deserve it. They deserve it all.
Yeah.
But sometimes there's just not time and space for that. And there's other ways how you can help people even more. So it's always just a decision. What do I want to do with my energy? And as Gene Key says, like, that like once you overcome that shadow, it becomes a gift, and it becomes a beautiful energetic quality that you can share with the world. Yeah.
And also, like, when you're bringing this up, for me, I've been realizing lately too, is also knowing when I just don't have the energy to share it with somebody else. And, sometimes I'm feeling vivacious and I'm ready to go and I can explain and go into full breath, but sometimes not even I don't want to say the word not deserving of me to explain it. It's just I'm not in a space or a mental place to really share with others. And I need to respect that when I'm in that space, if I pour out of my cup that's already empty, I'm just hurting myself for the sake of another, when I would rather come back to them with a full cup and then be able to pour into them, because energetically, when I'm giving them from an empty cup, it's not the same as when I'm pouring into them from what I feel
exactly. Like, and all the science and spirituality and everything stays the same, right? Like, you can't not pour from an empty cup. You just can't.
Yeah.
So you have to find the ways how to refill your cup, and then the information will be received.
Yeah, fantastic. So you brought up epigenetics. I've heard this term multiple times, but I've never had the opportunity to explore it with somebody that understands it.
Yeah.
So do you use human design, epigenetics? Do you use all these different modalities in your practice to help understand the individual too? Is this part of your practice?
It's not part of my practice where I would use human design or gene keys. Like, if I see someone who I believe would benefit from it, I'm always happy to share, right? Like, I have that knowledge, but it's not something that I'm always using. But I'm happy to share that with people, like what to read, where to go, if they're interested in that, right? And when we talk about epigenetics, it's more about what actually turns on and turns off that gene in your body, right?
Yeah.
A lot of times you meet people who say that, oh, my grandma had this condition, my mother had it, now I have it. Of course my daughter will have it. Well, that's one piece of it, right? But what is genes? Like, what is our DNA? DNA is a construct of light, right? It's a specific constellation of the light. Do you really think that that light travels like eons of time with no change? Everything in the universe wants to change because everything wants to be alive. But it's not about the constellation itself. It's about the environment that constellation is in. So when we talk about epigenetics, it says that, wait a second, external and internal environment, this is what's going to change the genetics. This is what's going to change the gene. Because if you notice, for people who are saying that my grandma and my mother and I have the same condition, yeah, but maybe you all grow up in the same environment mentally, emotionally. You have the same belief systems. You have the same, we just copy paste our parents' life until we are aware, right?
Yeah.
So, and we usually do that because, we perceive our parents as God when we are kids, right?
Yeah.
Like we think that they know everything, subconsciously think, right? Like we consciously don't think about that, but we just copy paste them. We suck their beliefs, their understanding, cultural approaches, and all makes us who we are.
Yeah.
But then if you actually change internal position, your beliefs, your emotional climate, because every single person has emotional home, what we call. Emotional home is the state that you spend the majority of your time in, right? Few lucky people can have joy and excitement. Majority of the population, anxiety, stress, depression, like all these states, like fear, where we constantly are in. And then, at some point, people catch themselves and they're like, I want to change it. Like, why am I always worrying? Like, why am I always stressed? They try to change it, but at that moment, your body's like, wait a second, I spent like 10 years in this. I made sure that all these organs that you have changes their receptivity and everything to stay in this environment and emotional climate. You can't change that like that. Like, that would require me another 10 years to rearrange all these organs.
Yeah.
Like, what are we doing then? So then, of course, you stay. What is the easiest way for your body to put you back? The same thought that you usually have. That's why they say you have 95% of the same thoughts every single day. Once you start challenging them, you see that, oh my God, like that is something that I believed was truth, but not necessarily it is.
Yeah.
For some people, it can stay like truth. So epigenetics states that if you change beliefs, mental field, emotional field, external environment, right? External toxicity like mold, bacteria, dust, and all that stuff, different genes will be turned on or off. And this is what epigenetics is on the simple term, right? Like it's just teaching people and showing that, wait a second, if you change things externally or internally, different genetic conditions would happen. Like it's just science, right? I know that it sounds like woo-woo at first.
No,
but this is what it is.
No.
Because I just want to give you an example. Your genetic code is like 98% the same as banana on the counter. Well, you clearly look and act differently, right? So what makes you you? Exactly these conditions, like these thoughts, these emotions, these physical organs and everything that you have, they make you who you are by the signals that they send. So you change something, you change the light constellation, you change DNA, that's it. Genetic changes.
Got it. So, okay, what I'm just trying to understand is this. When you say that we turn on genes and we turn off genes, from my understanding, all human beings technically have all the same potentials for genes.
Exactly.
So you're saying, if my understanding is correct, that we all have the same genetic possibilities, but only certain genes are turned on or turned off. So me and my parents might have certain genes that are turned on because of our same basically belief systems and our history and the way that we were raised. But there is a potentiality that Laura can have the same genes that I have also turned on. It's not saying that I have different ones than you have. It's just that we all turn them on and turn them off in specific ways.
Exactly.
Got
You're
it. Okay.
absolutely correct.
So that was what I was not understanding with epigenetics. I thought that each of us had specific propensities and maybe only specific genes in our structure. Let's say like maybe a specific type of cancer, right?
It's all in unity. Again,
Yeah.
we all have it all in us.
Got it.
But what's going to be turned on or off,
Yeah.
well, that depends on a lot of things.
Yeah. Okay, cool. That makes perfect sense now. Okay,
And
got it.
have you ever heard about Dr. Bruce Lipton?
I've heard the name Lipton. I forget what his
He was one of
specialty
my
is.
teachers in the PhD program. Like he has this book called Biology of Belief.
Okay. Yeah, I've heard
So
about the book. Somebody has
it's a pretty
recommended it to me.
interesting book if you want to dive
Yeah.
into that field, because yeah, there's a lot of researches and stuff done that how when you change environment, internal or external, genetic code changes.
Yeah, I was going to recommend a book too for your clients, Tony Robbins' Awaken the Giant Within. Have you read that one?
Mm-hmm.
Yeah, that one really changed my life in a very dramatic way, just helping me restructure my belief systems, the words.
Yeah.
I mean, like it really covers the wide spectrum of how your brain works, is how I felt with that one. But somebody has definitely recommended The Biology of Belief, and I think it's actually sitting on my work desk.
Mm-hmm.
So I'll try to bump it up the list of all the books that I'm trying to get through. It's
I
just one of
totally
those.
feel you. Like,
Yeah.
yeah, like there's like a pile of books on my work desk too. But yeah,
Yeah.
you just grab whatever feels the most,
Yeah.
relevant at that moment. And yeah, I'm very familiar with Tony Robbins on work. I was there in their mentorship for a year, and I went through the whole stuff.
nice.
So yeah, I love his ideas. It's very masculine approach, like very matter to matter
Yeah.
approach. I love it.
Yeah.
Sometimes, again, there's a time and space for everything.
Time and space
that
for
was
everything.
needed at that moment. Right now, I choose another ways and choose like to work from the energetic field perspective.
Yeah.
Because that feels like a missing piece sometimes.
Yeah.
But yeah, there's always a need and there's always a space for that, matter to matter work that we have to do. It's
Yeah.
all in unity. Again, you cannot separate or neglect none of it. It's all working in conjunction.
No, of course. There's always going to be the masculine, feminine balance of life, and a
Feminine
lot
and masculinity, right?
Yeah.
Electricity and magnetism is the same. It's
Yeah.
all about the spectrum. There is a
of
book called.
contraction and expansion.
Have you read The Universal One by Walter Russell?
I have not.
That book is very difficult, but it's a very, very old book, but it's all about the frequencies, inertia, movement, and like how about reality in general. So that might be a good one for you to read.
Okay, cool. I'll look into that.
Mm-hmm.
And then, is there a specific topic that you would like to discuss that you think is maybe important for people that are on this healing path, or maybe just looking to learn more about themselves? What is something that they could start doing to help them in their healing journey?
Yeah. So first thing that I want to make sure that people hear, like who listening to this podcast, that there's always a way. That it's definitely the message that I want to share with people and just let them know that there's always a way. You just have to, as we were talking, like you just have to keep looking, right?
Yeah.
And always try to actually use your body's intelligence and just see where it starts. Like I believe that some people, they just know intuitively. They just know like, oh, that's the problem, right? So
Yeah.
find someone who can actually help you uncover that.
Yeah.
But again, always look for someone who has probably different understandings and different fields in their pocket, because if I know only one thing, you know what I'm going to offer, right? Like if you see an Eastern medicine doctor, you know that they're going to offer you acupuncture and herbs. If you see functional medicine doctor, you will have supplementation, peptides, injection. Like if you see Reiki practitioner, they're going to tell you that Reiki is the best tool in this case.
Yeah, of course.
So every time when you have specific challenge, I'm trying not to use the word problem, but it's more like a challenge at that moment,
Yeah.
right? So once you have specific challenge, I would invite people to look for someone who can understand that broadly, for probably like as many perspectives as you can, or
Yeah.
go to see as many people as you can.
Yeah.
So you would be able to choose where's my truth and what do I want to do with it? Because if
Yeah.
you hear only one person talking about that and explaining you what it is,
Yeah.
it's not necessarily the truth.
No, and I agree with you. And I mean, there's like several things that come to mind is like one, right? Following your intuition and understanding, like you said, certain doctors are only going to be able to provide you with certain treatments because that's their extent of their knowledge.
Sure.
But then what does somebody do that just doesn't have the financial means to like figure this stuff out? Like, do they just go read books and maybe follow their intuition and be like, you know what, I have a feeling that it could be this, and just learn on their own? Because the truth is that a lot of people just can't afford to go to 5 different doctors with 5
Of
different
course.
specialties. And, I don't even know how much you charge an hour, but I'm guessing it's not very cheap just because of your level of education. Not saying that in a negative way. It's like you should be charging, for the value of your time,
Of course.
but also balancing that you want to help people out, right? And so it becomes this difficult journey where it's like, you and I have spent a lot of time working on ourselves to improve our health and to grow. And so in that journey, we probably have met the practitioners and the people that are specialists. And so maybe that's really the advice. It's just, when you start working and healing yourself and going through the different layers and understanding that as you unfold one layer, another one will reveal itself, and just keep tugging on that thread, that you will get to where you need to go.
Exactly. I totally agree with you. And I also, as you were saying, like if there is no financial resources or like any kind of energetic resources to actually go see a lot of people, like see someone specific, definitely trust your intuition, whatever feels right. If you feel like, oh, damn, the cause is emotional for my problem, try as many books as you can on emotional decoding. Try to see like what kind of emotion is there. Just try to communicate with your body, because over time, as an expert, even when you look at someone, the way that the smallest muscles in your body move, you can see what kind of emotion is locked in that person. You can see that state. You can see that, right? So I always encourage people, like if you intuitively know something is not right, like I don't know what it is, and I don't have ability to go and see someone, let's make sure that I can communicate with my body. Like, okay, what is in there? Feel like there's emotional. Go and find all the book on the emotional, decoding emotional body healing, all of that. If you feel like it's coming from my thought patterns, go and do that. If you feel like it's coming from the physical, start small. Make sure that you sleep enough and you rest enough, reduce the stress level, and eat the right foods.
Yeah, the basics.
It's the basics. Like if you are not able to have this energy transaction, which is a little higher, start from the basics. Like they always serve. Like it's we kind of consider that as a small thing, but it actually what makes you whole. Like it's all that it's needed.
Yeah.
And sometimes people ask me like, what is your favorite biohacking tool? And I'm like, meditate and sleep.
Yeah.
That's it.
Yeah. That's funny that you bring that up. The place that I did the biohacking regime at that I'm telling you about in San Diego, a big part of it is they give us a lot of hydrogen baths and hydrogen inhalation and hydrogen water, because a lot of our cells, I mean, all of our cells are pretty much mostly made out of H2O, which is hydrogen and oxygen. So they're just like, look, we're just going back to the basics. Most people are not drinking enough water. Their cells are dying from hypoxia. Hypoxia means a lack of hydrogen or oxygen. And they just have people basically laying in a tub all day. They're getting hydrogen inhalation. They're just relaxing. And they're telling them sleep a certain amount of hours and drink 100 ounces of water a day. And just doing those basic things for a lot of individuals will help them heal the disease and the issues that they've been suffering, just because it's just getting down to, are you taking care of yourself?
Exactly. And like I also think that we are conditioned to think that these things does not matter.
Yeah.
We think that, oh, like it doesn't matter. Like I have to see a specialist to tell me what is wrong with me. No, you not. Yeah, sometimes you do, but not necessarily, right?
No, a lot of times you know what the heck is wrong with you.
Exactly.
You're just denying to yourself that you know what's wrong. You really know the root of the cause. You just want to keep doing the same addictive behavior because you're addicted to the chemicals being released in your brain, and making change is harder than just, staying in the same shit that you're doing every single day.
It requires so much energy to change, right?
Yeah.
So why would I do that? So sometimes it requires an experience for people to actually find a place where, okay, I have to change. Like something has to change.
Yeah, I mean, it's what you said earlier. 95% of the thoughts we have every day are the same thoughts, but also probably 95% of the actions you do every day are the same actions.
Exactly.
And making a change, the hardest part sometimes, like getting to go to the gym, the first time you go is the hardest time, and then you just start creating
and it becomes a habit.
Yeah.
So it's all about the basics. And definitely when people don't have resources to see someone or like go somewhere, it's just start from the basics.
Yeah.
Sleep, water, the good food, sunlight. Light is a big part too.
Yeah. Okay. I want to respect the fact I know you have to go to a meeting. I want you to tell people how they can contact you if this is something that they would like to reach out. So website, whatever, phone number, how can people reach you so that they can reach out if they need help with your extremely amazing knowledge and wide breadth of education. This has been an awesome conversation. I'm really stoked that I got to meet with you today.
Thank you.
This has been really cool. Yeah.
I'm so happy to be here. So yeah, there are a few options actually, and I'm sure you're probably going to share that on the link.
Yeah, we'll put it in the notes, of course. But if you want to just let people know
but
also.
there usually people find me through my email because I don't know, the whole practice is based on word of mouth. So I just see those emails coming from like somewhere, and my assistant just lets me know how to do that. So yeah, it's Laura@wellpeoplehealing.com. Super easy. Okay. So people can contact me there. There's my Instagram too. It's WholeULA. So
how do you spell that?
Whole U, like it's a whole.
WHOLE, the letter U, or YOU?
WHOLE-LA.
Okay, whole dash and
Yeah.
dash LA. Got it. Okay, cool. Because I want to add you obviously after this
Sure.
too. Okay, cool. All right, everybody. This was an amazing episode. I really appreciate you being here again, Laura.
course.
Learned a lot today, so this was amazing, and also learned a lot about myself just listening to you. And
That's
and,
the goal.
Yeah, and so I appreciate you coming down this way. And where are you based out of? Just so people
I'm in
know.
Santa Monica.
You're in Santa Monica. Okay, fantastic. So you're
Took
gonna
me
have
an
to check-
hour and a little bit to get here.
I understand that. Yeah, welcome
Yeah,
to LA
that-
traffic. I used to live in Santa Monica. I used to live in downtown LA, so I'm well aware of what you took to get here. I appreciate
But I
it.
mean, I love this part of the town of it's Orange County, as I understand that. So I love this place, and I come here pretty often. So
Yeah.
it's not a problem.
Yeah, cool. Awesome. All right, guys, we're going to chime on out. Thank you.